Uncut and uncensored. You know, 2 videos ago, today, which I am doing before work, during lunch, and probably afterwards, I talked about Twilight and the possibility of her becoming immortal once she ascends as the new ruler, along with her friends as co-rulers of Equestria, but Twilight being the main one. And basically the fact that a lot of fans are worried that, and this is something that's nothing new, but it's something they've talked about before, and that is Twilight outliving her friends, basically becoming immortal. Well, I brought up a fact that, Twilight, as I said in that video, and even in the previous video before this, that Twilight is being positioned as someone that masters magic. They can come up with, that could, create new spells, utilize old spells, and even improve on those old spells by adding a few details. And I talked about the fact that there's a possibility that her friends would live forever like she would, but the only exception is not only would they be immortal as well, but the only catch is they would still have to age naturally to a certain point that kind of keeps them very familiar, very similar and identical to when Twilight and us as viewers first met them, but also shows that they have grown with time. They have grown with time and everything, and they have become wiser in their years as the rulers of Equestria. But one question a lot of people have is, how does one, like a Twilight, and maybe even before this in a sense, a Celestia, get to this, become the Alicorn that rules over? I mean, in other words, how do they get to this statuesque-like form down the line, with the wavy manes and everything? Because, let's be honest, yes, Luna had the wavy mane as well. But we noticed that Luna wasn't as big as Celestia. Now, people have to wonder why Celestia was even taller than her sister, who acted like a co-ruler with her. But yet Celestia was looked at as the high and mighty one, the same way that it looks like Twilight is. Well, I think there's something to that. You see, apparently, what it seems to me is that it's something that occurs every 10,000 plus years in their timeline, to where some pony with a unicorn or a Pegasus will be chosen out of a select few as the one that will lead and rule Equestria for the next 1,000 years. And in the case of Celestia, she was chosen to do so. Like, obviously there was ponies before her that ruled over Equestria, from what I can understand. Starswirl obviously being one, sort of in an unofficial way. But Celestia was basically looked at as that chosen one. It's basically like a Star Wars mentality. You see, in Star Wars, everybody, if you follow the entire saga, depending on if it's confusing to you or not, Obi-Wan was obviously chosen. It was a chosen one. Thus, as he got to the point where he can mentor the future, Anakin Skywalker came in as the chosen one. Then after Anakin, in came Luke. And now you got Rey. It's like every thousand, so basically it's kind of in that mentality. Well, it's like every thousands of years, a new pony, whether it's a Pegasus, Earth, or a unicorn, is chosen to be the next ruler, the next leader of Equestria, due to the potential they have with the abilities they're given, with the magical abilities they have. So, in a sense, even though Luna and Celestia achieved that Alicorn status, we could assume that Celestia achieved it before her sister, and her sister followed just a little afterwards. But by doing so, Celestia became the main ruler because she showed the most potential with her magic. Because apparently, just like with Twilight, her main gift and ability was magic, as well as raising the sun. And the sun, for anybody that's aware, and you can see it right there, our sun anyway, the sun is looked at as being more powerful than the moon. And that day itself is looked at as being more powerful than night. In other words, it's the old saying of light will give away, like darkness will give way to the light. In other words, lightness will burn through the darkness, thus proving that the light is more powerful. So we can assume that because of that, she was chosen as the main ruler. Like, yes, her sister showed promise as well. Her sister showed promise as well, as a ruler, but because she could only raise the moon and not the sun like Celestia, Celestia proved to be the more powerful of the two, thus was the chosen one. Then, later on, of course, like I said, 1,000 years later, Celestia sees that Twilight, or senses Twilight, has that same gift and ability that she once had, and is basically given the knowledge to, choose Twilight. And she's basically given, like I said, the knowledge of choosing Twilight to be the next, in line, the next ruler after her. Thus, that's what this series focused on, in a sense, was Twilight's ascension to being the next ruler of Equestria after Celestia. After Celestia and Luna, that is. But just like with Celestia, she needed just like Celestia needed a co-ruler with her sister, or had to co-rule with her sister, the same could be said for Twilight, that she has to have a co-ruler as well, someone that she can, depend on to watch her back, and thus you have her friends, the rest of the main 6, main 7, main 8, if you will. Which brings me to why Twilight ended up. That brings me to towards the end of this video here, as to why Twilight ended up basically achieving the same statuesque-like manner that Celestia did. It's because she not only proved herself to be a true leader, but she proved to be the most powerful out of her friends, out of the entire main 7, main 8. And thus she became the main ruler along with them as her co-rulers. So there you go. Anyway, though, basically, I know it sounded like I rambled a little bit here and got confusing, but to me, that's what it seems like, in my opinion, as to why Twilight achieved the statuette status, you know, that was identical to Celestia's, because both of them went down the same path. And as people have speculated now and talked about, Twilight, from what the rumors they have heard and the speculation they have heard, it's now Twilight's turn to pass it on to a student that represents, she could relate to, just like Celestia related to her. So, and can prove that she too, her student, just like Celestia saw with Twilight, could be the next leader of Equestria. So, we'll have to wait and see what occurs. But in my opinion, I think that's why Twilight achieved Celestia statuette status, if you will. Or Celestia status, put it that way. But, or will achieve Celestia status, as some people are predicting. I know I sound like I'm saying has or will, but eventually will. I should be saying that. But what do you guys think? What do you think of my opinion here? My thoughts on that? Let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like. I gotta get ready to go back to work, and I will talk to y'all later.